Do you believe in gut feelings, both good and bad? Why or why not? Yeah, it's just your subconscious picking up on things you don't consciously notice. Yep, people underestimate the power of the brain. For example, if you're in the woods late in the afternoon, not a lot of sunlight and get really creeped out, get the chills on your back, and you think running back to your house or car or camping tent is a good idea, it's not a ghost or a monster. It's your subconscious picking up on noises and things you aren't actively paying attention to and determining you're in danger. Sometimes this is true as well, not in the sense that people see a ghost, but in the sense that something big is looking at them and thinking they're food, like a bear or a mountain lion. Sometimes you have knowledge you can't quite articulate. Stuff that's based on observation, experience, and data. But nothing solid, nothing you can put into words. You just have a feeling, a suspicion, and a hunch. So yeah, I believe gut feelings exist. And I believe they can be accurate. But I also believe they can be complete bullcrap. Just depends on your level of self-deception and how rational your subconscious happens to be. A gut feeling is intuition. It's based on a kind of learning that bypasses the formal language and rational decision-making parts of the brain. It's difficult to explain intuitive reasoning because it happens in the more primitive parts of the brain that don't like to explain themselves. But it's learned decision-making nonetheless, and it can be very valid if the subject learned his intuition honestly. Unfortunately, since it's not a transparent sort of reasoning, it can also be tainted with prejudice if it was learned in the wrong sort of environment. No. I have struggled with health anxiety in the recent past, so I learned that my gut feelings are completely unreliable. And that I always think the extremes are going to happen, worst or best case. My brain isn't grounded in reality. I do with people. I listen to my gut if something feels off about someone. Normally they end up pulling some bad crap or ruining people's lives. Not so much with situations, but definitely with people. Also trust a dog's reaction. Before I begin this story, let me make something absolutely clear. I do not believe in psychic powers. I do not believe in premonitions. And I am absolutely not claiming to be some kind of prophet. There is a completely rational explanation for what happened in this tale. And I welcome what I'm sure will be a calm and well-reasoned debate about the complete absence of magic in the real world. Now, moving on. Back when I was about 12 years old, I went to a Boy Scout camp in the mountains of Colorado. All of the attendees would be spending their nights in enclosures called wall tents, which are really just metal frames over which some thick canvas has been draped. If you imagine a child's drawing of a house, you'll be on the right track. Although the smoking chimneys are only present if something has gone disastrously awry. These shelters can serve as protection from weather and noise, but that's about it. And they're decidedly not the sort of place you'd want to hide if a bomb was about to go off. Not that I'm suggesting a bomb actually went off, mind you. Boy Scouts aren't that sinister. Anyway, on the morning of my first day at the camp in question, I was sitting in my tent, trying to unpack the various things I'd need during the day. My friend Peter, another Boy Scout, was sitting across from me, telling me a story about having received a concussion when he was younger. Suddenly, as he was describing the aftermath, an urgent flash of images went through my head. I saw an enormous log come crashing through the back wall of our makeshift house, and I could almost feel my teeth smashing together as the marauding wood assaulted my head. Feeling somewhat silly, but still a touch panicked, I jumped away from where I had been sitting, just as an enormous log came crashing through the canvas and onto my cot. It turned out that some of our fellow scouts had decided to carry a bench back from the woods. When that had proven to require too much effort, they had taken to rolling it, then hoisting it end over end after nearly losing it a few times. Really, that seems like it would have required more effort than just carrying it. But we weren't the tightest knots in the handbook, if you take my meaning. One ill-placed push had caused the log to tumble toward my tent, and if I hadn't leapt away, Peter wouldn't have been the only one with a concussion story to share. Now, like I said, I don't believe in psychic powers or premonitions. I'm sure I must have heard something outside and guessed that moving would be a good idea. Even so, the vividness of the images that I saw, and the sense of urgency that I felt left me feeling more than a little bit shaken. When my friends finally got their bench over to the campfire, I went to sit on it, just to assert my dominance. TLDR, in which I am nearly murdered by marauding wood. The night before my dog was hit by a car and died, I had a dream that I was standing in the middle of the road, headlights rushing towards me. The night before my mom's bird died, unsure how or why, I had a dream she lost her wings. The night before my cousin died, cancer, I had a dream I was in a hospital, fading in and out of consciousness. They were all unusual dreams compared to what I normally dream about. Usually my dreams bounce around like a nonsensical adventure. These nights, it was only one single moment or image. They also just felt different. More real. One coincidental dream could easily be explained away, but a pattern is starting to form. I don't believe in magic or psychics or whatever. I don't claim to have any special powers or anything. I simply believe there is more to the human mind than we think. I know it can all be explained with science, but I'm not sure science has the tools to fully understand and explain it yet. I have anxiety, so most of the time, no. I mean, to this day I have never been killed in my sleep or anything like I often think I will be. However, there have been times when I have had experiences of that unexplainable feeling that something is up and been right. 10 years ago, I took my dog for a walk and felt the need to get home earlier than usual. My parents had left and locked up the house while I was gone because my brother was in a car accident and they had rushed off to the site. I didn't know this because I didn't have a phone. But that get home now feeling would have been about when they got the call, judging by the time it took me to get home from where I was. Both my pregnancies I was sure about even before I was late for a period, and despite tests coming up negative, and both times I felt like my baby would come early, and they did. My daughter got sick around 14 weeks and I decided to take her up to the hospital, even though it was just an old temperature and lethargy. She had meningitis and we caught it extremely early. I had weird bleeding after my second child was born and went to the ER for it. The doctor made me feel like an idiot for coming in saying that bleeding is normal after birth, which I knew, but mine had stopped and then started heavily again. He then told me it sounded to him like it was a period, 4 weeks after my baby was born, and sent me home. Pap smear showed abnormal cells were causing the bleeding. Doctor said it was probably nothing and it looked fine. The cells would sort themselves out, which is common. I insisted on a biopsy and am now being treated for early stages of cervical cancer. I always believe in my gut feeling. When I was little, I would believe in my gut feeling for little things, like secretly going on my iPad at night in my room past my curfew and knowing my mom is near my door, so I'd put my iPad away. Now I use my gut feeling for blind dates or meeting new people, the weather, etc. Last year or so my newfound guy friend set me up on a blind date, which isn't normal for guys. I didn't have a good feeling about it, but I went anyways. I met up with the guy at an expensive restaurant. He was okay looking, had a bit of a sense of humor, and whatnot. I still didn't have a good feeling, but assumed it was me just being nervous around a stranger. After we finished eating, I didn't have a car, so I decided I'd just call an Uber and go home. He insisted that he'd drive me home and that he wouldn't be a gentleman if he left a lady on her own. I decided I would just stick with the Uber. For some reason he was trying to push it and he seemed like he really wanted me to go with him. For this reason I refused, and just then my Uber arrived, and I went straight to my best friend's house. Made sure I wasn't being followed. Fast forward a few days and I find out he got arrested for rape or assault, and that he and my guy friend were planning on having a threesome with me. Was then very careful about choosing my friends and always listened to my gut feeling. I have to ignore my gut feelings. I get social anxiety, so whenever I'm somewhere crowded or in a social situation, my gut is telling me to get out of there, which makes me more anxious. Yes, always. Every time I've ever met someone and gone, "Ooh, why," I get a bad vibe, and ignored it and given them the benefit of the doubt, they have turned out to be an awful person. It's happened 4 times in my life with unwavering accuracy. I always trust it now. Yes, I do. I trust my gut over anything else. I mean, it's obviously my brain triggering the thought process, but anytime a decision has to be made, your body somehow lets you know if it thinks it's a good or bad one almost immediately. The gut is directly and heavily wired to the brain. You should learn to listen to your gut. I used to. But it is like falling victim to the gambler's fallacy. The idea that if a roulette wheel spins red 10 times in a row, black becomes due on the 11th. Despite the odds not changing from 47.35% chance of it being red or black. I do. Gut feelings are what happens when your brain makes a bigger picture out of lots of tiny unnoticeable things, without assembling a coherent chain of thought around it. Honestly, I think that some of these things that form a gut feeling aren't even necessarily on a physical level. There might even be a supernatural or other element to it that's not yet defined by science. Of course, the gut feeling is an evolutionary trait for humans to sense danger. Yes. The copy machine repairman at my old office was my manager's friend's husband. He was always a snarky, vile, negative a-hole. I physically reacted whenever he came in. Guttural dislike. I said as much to my manager, but she blew me off. "Oh, you just don't know him. His humor is a little weird, but he's a good guy." Fast forward a few years. I'm hanging out socially with my manager and she tells me her friend is getting divorced. And to her utter shock, copy repair guy was a horrible, abusive, mentally unstable a-hole to her friend. It was the first time I ever wished I had the ability to manifest a bullhorn from thin air. To blast no F crap to appropriate effect. On a positive note, friend got remarried to a genuinely good guy who loves her kids and treats her right. I think it has to do with how often you trust your gut. If it's something you do all of the time, you're probably making bad decisions that are emotional or impulsive. If you do it sparingly, it's instinctive. Yes, because I was in the food court of the Eaton Center in Toronto the day of the food court shooting in 2012. And about 10 minutes before the shooting happened, I had a gut feeling that I needed to leave.
This is RedditJoe channel, and don't forget to hit subscribe down below for more upcoming videos.